Howdy, with this video, I want to go over the doublespeak essay, then go over what doublespeak is, and go over a possible outline for the doublespeak essay. You'll find all this material under Material for Doublespeak Essay Spring 24 on the content page. I'm doing this video for all three of my Comp 1 classes for Spring 2024. So even though I'm in my internet class right now, the other two classes have the same material and the same essay they're working on. Alrighty. So we're going to start taking a look at the essay. And there it is. And the assignment sheet starts off with a brief definition of doublespeak. I'm going to go over that in the video here in a little bit, get into a lot more detail. But basically, it's people using language to control how you think, to get you to buy things, to get you to do certain things, and also to hide things. And what you're going to basically going to do, you're going to be kind of an investigative reporter that finds a primary source using doublespeak, and your essay is going to take us through that primary source and show us the different ways they use doublespeak. So you can write a 1,000-word essay. You can use either MLA or APA. Don't try and do both, right? That wouldn't make sense. But if you're getting into sociology, psychology, nursing, they're going to be looking for APA format for the most part. And I would strongly encourage you to write a second paper in APA format to try and get that as down as you can. It takes practice to get all the little nitty gritty stuff. But the more practice you get with APA, if you're going into those fields, the better off you are. If you're doing something else, we've got a couple of welding students. You don't care, right? You probably mad you have to use MLA or APA, but you got to pick one of them, and either one's fine with me. But you're gonna have a doublespeak topic of your choosing. It should be one primary source, like one speech or one product's advertising, something like that. And again, we'll talk about that here a little bit more in a second. And be sure to receive my approval before you write the essay. That's mandatory. If you give me a completed essay and it looks like it's AI generated, I'm not going to grade it if I haven't seen you working on it, right? So be careful there. But your essay should include the following items. You're going to be using a primary source from which you're going to pull your doublespeak examples. So if you want to look at a politician's doublespeak, it can be any politician, right? That's what they do. But like if you want to use Barack Obama's doublespeak, you have to go find one speech that he gave or one specific example of doublespeak, of him using doublespeak that you can analyze and make an essay of your own. I don't want to hear you, quoting other people quoting Obama using doublespeak. Sometimes news organizations will do that. I want you to do the actual analyzing and finding the doublespeak and explaining why you think it's doublespeak. You're going to have two other sources other than your primary source. One of them is going to be William Lutz's source. That's on the content page there under material for essay number material for doublespeak essay. That's it right here. It's the doublespeak source. You have to use that for your definitions. You have to use that for your definitions. If you're getting it from somewhere else, I'm going to think you're using AI or plagiarizing or something, and then not good things happen. So be careful there. But you're going to use two sources other than your primary source. That kind of depends on your topic. You may have to define some terms. It just kind of depends on what you choose to work with. Again, the definitions of doublespeak and the forms of doublespeak, including weasel words, jargon, euphemism, which we'll go over in a second. They have to come from that Lutz source that I've provided in D2L. You need a long quote, short quote, summary, paraphrase, all the fun punctuation. Still got the forbidden words. It kind of depends on your topic. If you have personal experience with the topic, you might be using some I in there. I had a student use some communications with the VA who were denying him some medical benefits, and he went through the letters I sent him, basically saying, well, you're not going to get what you want. And they used a lot of doublespeak, and it made a good essay. You want to kind of avoid, right? You're not assuming your reader's done anything or is understanding the same thing you are, so be careful there. And of course, you want to limit your to be verbs, is and are, if at all possible. And if you do choose to use APA format, I will add 5 points to the essay grid, just bonus points because you got to have the title page, you got to have the abstract. It's just a little bit more work, so you get a little bit more points, right? Just another way to encourage, particularly the sociology, psychology, nursing students to go ahead and give a second APA essay a shot. All right, so that's the essay. Pretty straightforward. The big trick is finding a good primary source that allows you to take this through the primary source and show the doublespeak being used there. I want to go through well, a PowerPoint presentation. If I wear you down a bit, feel free to pause the video, right? um, Let me get it going here. This will be up there on D2L as well. But again, doublespeak, this is kind of taken from a book someone wrote. Language is a loaded weapon. We like to think that language just communicates basic things to each other, but well, we also manipulate people. We do all kinds of interesting things with language, and that's what doublespeak starts to get into. A lot of this comes from George Orwell's book, 1984. At least that's kind of where we're started getting, the wording and the phraseology and stuff. If you've never read 1984, it's about a big brother who controls everything in society. And excuse me. And you've certainly heard Big Brother, like the television show, kind of. But this idea that the government's controlling everything. And there's no real one person there. It's just Big Brother. They use this face to represent the government, but this may not be a real person. And Big Brother has three mantras: war is peace, ignorance is strength, and freedom is slavery. Seemingly contradictory phrases, but they kind of make sense even in our own times. War is peace. Why do we spend so much money on defense? So that if we can maintain the ability to make war, we can maintain the peace, right? People won't mess with us. But we spend an awful lot of our budget on war, right? Ignorance is strength. Why do people like to limit our internet access? Particularly like when I'm doing this in the high schools, they'd like to have those filters that don't let us do anything. But they have internet, kind of. Because, that kind of freedom to pursue knowledge on your own is kind of a form of slavery in a kind of way. It's kind of interesting, right? Why do they want to limit our freedoms? Because we can't be responsible for ourselves. They're taking care of us, right? So when we talk about doublespeak, in 1984 it was called newspeak, and the idea was that the more you destroy the language, the more you can control people, and you control people by their inability to use language or think other thoughts. It was actually that profound. So it's kind of an interesting line of thought. In the 1989, William Les put out his book Doublespeak, and this is the definition he came up with. Keep in mind, doublespeak's been around forever, right? Any religious text, where you go back to the beginning of time, Adam and Eve, or Cain and Abel, certainly, God's like, "Where's your brother?" And Cain's like, "Am I my brother's keeper?" It's like, that wasn't the question. Using doublespeak to deflect, right? But doublespeak is language that pretends to communicate, but really doesn't. Language that makes the bad seem good, the negative appear positive, the unpleasant appear attractive, or at least tolerable. It shifts responsibility. It avoids responsibility. We all do it sometimes when we're about to get in trouble. We'll see that in action here in a second. Language that doesn't quite mean what it seems to mean on the surface. It's language that conceals and prevents thought, rather than developing thought and extending it. Doublespeak tends to limit it, so your brain's not allowed to pursue certain lines of thought. And three main points to remember from that definition. Language can be used as a form of manipulation, particularly when something bad starts happening. Language can be used to avoid or shift responsibility, and you need to start looking to see whether the facts agree with the words being used, which can be kind of an interesting way to see the world. A few examples: if you're involved in the abortion debate in any way, how you refer to a fetus determines a lot about how you're going to think about abortion, probably. If that fetus is an unborn child, which is kind of an odd phrase, right? We don't refer to ourselves by what we're not. I'm not, an unstudent or something like that. But if you think about it as an unborn child, they want to put a certain image in your head. And if you're going to start the debate with using that language, it's going to go a certain way, probably, right? Likewise, if you're pro-choice, or you're hearing people talking in terms of pro-choice line of thought, you're going to hear that fetus often referred to as, unviable tissue. Abortion is a medical procedure. But there's problems with that line of thought too, right? But both sides are trying to control how you see that fetus, and what can possibly happen to it. And right, and I'm not trying to step on everyone's toes in here, but you kind of probably felt yourself tensing up just me talking about it like this, because you're probably on one side of that debate and use that language. In education, we use all kinds of doublespeak to deflect blame and things like that, or not let you know we're actually going to increase your tuition. We won't increase your tuition. We might ask you students to participate more in the revenue stream of the college, right? Or contribute more. But we're not going to raise tuition, right? But when they started doing these standards of learning tests way back in the day, obviously teachers didn't like it. And particularly in Southwest Virginia, I pulled this out of the Bristol, Virginia newspaper. One of the high school teachers, one of the union reps, said that we can't judge teachers based on these student scores because we're working with a challenged population. Now, if you think about that phrase "challenged population," it's very undefined. It's deflecting blame. I mean, who's to blame for a challenged population? The teachers, the parents, the students, the administration. That's the entire population. It's not like we can take the population that's here and replace it with an unchallenged population. So who do you blame for these poor standards of learning scores? Nobody, right? Just blame the population. So a good example of people using language to kind of control how people might see a negative situation. We're going to talk about 3 or 4 different types. You're going to be talking about these in your essay. You may not use all of these, but you're going to use 2 or 3 of them. The one's euphemism, which we'll go over. Then you have jargon. Generally in this class, we're going to separate out weasel words from jargon. Weasel words are used so much in advertising that they're almost their own separate category. Then, of course, inflated language, bureaucracies, gobbledygook, people just piling on language so that you just give up. The first one we're going to talk about is euphemism. Euphemism is an inoffensive or positive word used to avoid a harsh, unpleasant, or distasteful reality. And it kind of depends on your intentions. If you go to a funeral and you say, that person passed or went to a better place, you're using euphemisms, but you're not really trying to manipulate anybody. We all know what we're talking about. We're just trying to, ease people's suffering. But sometimes people will use euphemisms against you. Right? A lot of times nobody just gets out and out fired, especially if you're in a larger company with a human resource office. They might ask you to take an involuntary early retirement. When they talk about it in the newspaper, they'll talk about labor force adjustments, restructuring, reallocating human assets. In education, your teacher probably won't get fired, they just won't get renewed, right? But all of a sudden, this is really affecting people's lives in very negative ways, so they're trying to put in a kind of a pleasant wording to a very unpleasant reality and trying to make it seem not quite so bad. It's a good example of how doublespeak works. Right? If Eastman decides to start moving operations overseas, Kingsport's in big trouble, right? When we talk about war, the language of death starts to bring in these euphemisms, right? Quite often, if you hear the military talk about their operations in country, they don't kill people. They might acquire targets, service targets, and convert targets. And if you're that target, you got a problem, right? You're dead. We don't bomb people. We use air support. We don't attack people. We use preemptive strikes. Putting a nice word on what might be an unpleasant reality, or might be trying to obscure what's actually going on within all these processes. Likewise, if the wrong targets of service it might be due to friendly fire. If we bomb the wrong building, a school instead of the bad guy's place, we call that collateral damage. Been a problem with our drone program, right? This collateral damage where we're killing innocent people, which is a problem, right? If you're killing innocent people, it's not a war on terror, it's terrorism, right? So, and of course, it's nobody's fault. When these bad things happen, it's usually due to incontinent ordnance or something like that. It's the bomb's fault. It fell in the wrong place. So, it's not like the military does this all the time, but when something goes wrong, you're going to start hearing this doublespeak come in where they try to put a nicer word on a very unpleasant reality, make it seem not quite so bad. But, kind of the whole point of our military is to be ready to kill people and break things, right? That's what we're spending all that money on, is to have that capability. And how do you talk about that when you have to actually do that? It's kind of interesting. And more euphemisms about war. If a soldier is sacrificed by the government, we don't phrase it that way, right? We're taught to say he or she gave their life for their country, like it was a soldier's choice to be put in harm's way and get killed. They may not have wanted to be there at all, and they might even not like why they were there. But we're going to put it up on the soldier and kind of blame the soldier for the choice of giving their life for the country. I come from a military family. It makes me very uncomfortable to talk about it like that. Likewise, they died for our freedom, or we put all these nice words on what really is a very unpleasant reality. We put some of our best people in harm's way, and how we talk about it can be very interesting. Our military is pretty open, or eventually they are. Generally comes out at some point. But other countries, they start talking about purification programs, re-education programs, resettlement programs. They're talking about moving people, genocide, from some very ugly stuff there. So when you start hearing about war and military actions, it's interesting to get into the language and see what they're actually saying and what they mean by that, right? When soldiers die, they made the ultimate sacrifice, right? Like it was their choice to be killed, even though we put them in harm's way for what are often sometimes vague political reasons, right? So, like I said, sometimes when you get into this doublespeak, it can make you a little uncomfortable because we all use it. I've used these phrases before. I still use them. It's not like I stopped. But you kind of go back to what's the intention behind it. Is somebody trying to hide something? Did something not quite go right? And how are they trying to explain it? And of course, with euphemism, the Nazis were some of the more ultimate users of euphemism. If you were Jewish or otherwise undesired for whatever reason, and they offered you resettlement, you had a problem, right? Particularly resettlement to the east. They were moving you out to the concentration camps, right? Or to the ghettos. This is the Gates at Auschwitz. Work will make you free. Well, of course it does, because they work you to death, right? And of course, the ultimate euphemism, the final solution, where you kill 6 million Jews and millions of other peoples, just in a straight up genocide. But a nice phrase to a very horrible, horrifying, evil reality. And that's how euphemism kind of works. Sometimes it's kind of funny. Sometimes you kind of see through it. And sometimes things are happening where you're like, whoa, what did that person just say? What are they about to do? Or what did we do? It can be very interesting. All right, the next type of doublespeak we're going to look at is jargon and weasel words. Jargon is a specialized language of a particular trade, profession, or group. Right, you had to learn some jargon in this class, just to understand what my commentary on your papers. Like you probably didn't know what a comma splice was, or this was, or misplaced modifier, or whatever, until you saw it on paper and asked me about it. Because I'm using the jargon of English teachers. It doesn't mean I'm trying to manipulate you in any way or deceive you in some way. It's just there's a special language for my trade. Same way, military people, they have their specialized language, right? Some of it's kind of silly and funny. But some of it, you got to be able to communicate quickly. I mean, if you're being shot at, you need help pretty quick, right? You can't send a long text. You need to have language that gets your help there immediately. Same thing if you're in an emergency room and you're bleeding out. Those doctors are going to start using language that you don't understand pretty quickly. But hopefully the nurses and everybody else in the room understands. And again, they're not trying to deceive you. But if you do go to the emergency room and you have a negative patient care outcome, or you experience a terminal episode, or due to a diagnostic misadventure of a high magnitude, if you don't know what those words mean, you don't realize that someone made a mistake and killed you. And all of a sudden, the jargon starts to become doublespeak because they're hiding, deflecting blame. They're making something that not really bad seem kind of okayish, maybe. But you don't want to go to the hospital and have a negative patient care outcome. And of course, they got to explain all this stuff in their paperwork and everything when something bad happens, particularly when someone makes a mistake. And you got to start seeing that jargon creep in. You'll see some euphemism creep in, so they can deflect blame and make it seem not quite so bad. Likewise, when a plane crashes, the airlines have to account for that on the books, right? Sometimes they don't lose money because they're insured. So they have to account for all this. So they might say the plane experienced an involuntary conversion. Um, Likewise, the military likes to convert targets sometimes, right? Convert them into what? That's kind of the question there. And if you don't quite know the language, particularly when lawyers start getting involved, that jargon can really deceive you and make you not understand what's going on. One special type of jargon, and you're probably gonna use this as a separate category in your essay when we get to start looking at possible topics. They're called weasel words. Particularly in advertising, weasel words are words that seem to say something but are either hollow or qualify the words that follow. I can legitimately say that if you make it all the way to the end of this video, this class will help you become a millionaire within 5 years. I guarantee it. Come find me in 5 years if you're not a millionaire. I can say anything I want, because once I use that word help, I've qualified everything that comes after it, right? So if you come back to me in 5 years, like, where's my $1 million, Mr. Fish? I'm gonna be like, I didn't say give you $1 million. I just said it would help. Sorry you didn't do the other stuff you needed to get $1 million, right? But it's weasel words like helps, fights, crest helps fight cavities, right? They're not saying anything. They're not making any statement. You can't take your dental bill to Crest and say, hey, bro, I got cavities. They're going to be like, sorry. It just helped. We helped fight those cavities, but cavities won, I guess. Controls, virtually. Don leaves dishes virtually spotless, which means they are spotty. You're virtually a millionaire right now, right? Virtually means it's not. Likewise, a lot of this medication is going to say, this medication treats a condition. It doesn't eliminate it, doesn't cure it, just treats it, which pretty much anything can. Beer can treat depression, right? As much as any pill. But treats is kind of this deceiving weasel word. And if you don't know it's being used that way, people are using doublespeak against you, or works to, things like that. So if you look at some examples. All right, let me get the sound up a little bit. This is an ad for Zoloft, an antidepressant. Make it bigger. You're going to start hearing the weasel words come in pretty quickly.
When you feel the weight of sadness.
Sorry, and when you're thinking about a possible topic, drug ads work really well, because when you can start with the visuals. What's this egg-shaped entity doing on our screen? Why is it in black and white? Why is it all sadsies? Well, this is it's depressed, right? But they spend a lot of money coming up with these images and these ideas and tapping into your brains in ways you may not be aware they're doing.
You may feel exhausted, hopeless, and anxious. Whatever you do, you feel lonely and don't enjoy the things you once loved.
No college students mid-semester are feeling that way, right? So we got this dark cloud that's over the little egg's head. The bluebird of happiness is, not flying, or, just kind of staring at this poor entity. They're getting you to try and diagnose yourself a little bit, so you'll go to your doctor and start asking for Zoloft. This is a TV commercial, right? They're not advertising to doctors here.
Things just don't feel like they used to. These are some symptoms of depression, a serious medical condition affecting over 20 million Americans. While the cause is unknown.
Stop. Now you got to start listening to the commercial, right? The cause of this of depression is unknown, but we got a pill to fix it. So how's that going to work? They're going to show you this dramatization. Once they put dramatization on screen, they can draw whatever they want. This is not what nerve cells actually look like, right?
Depression may be related to an imbalance of.
May be related. May is a weasel word. It may or may not be related. They don't know what causes it, so they can't make a specific claim about their drug curing this, right?
Natural chemicals between nerve cells in the brain. Prescription Zoloft works to correct this imbalance.
Again, works to correct are more weasel words. Not saying it eliminates it. They're not saying this will even work. They're just saying it works to correct. It may not work for you. They're not making any specific claims about their drug.
You just shouldn't have to feel this way anymore. Only your doctor can diagnose depression. Zoloft is not for everyone. People taking MAOIs or Pimozide shouldn't take.
And like most drug commercials, they're going to show the drug. They're going to pretend to show the drug working. The clouds part, the bird sings, the flowers grow. all because of this little egg person thingy. Took Zoloft, now it's smiling, right? And they're telling you the side effects, which are pretty significant for something like Zoloft.
Zoloft. Side effects may include dry mouth, insomnia, sexual side effects, diarrhea, nausea, and sleepiness. Zoloft is not habit-forming. Talk to your doctor about Zoloft, the #1 prescribed brand of its kind. Zoloft. When you know more about what's wrong, you can help make it right.
All right, a little catchphrase that means absolutely nothing. So a commercial like this or a product like this could make a good primary source for your doublespeak essay. You have all the images that you can work with. You can hear some of the euphemisms about the side effects. You see the weasel words taking over to the point where this commercial makes absolutely no claim at all about Zoloft. But it makes you think it did, but they didn't. They haven't said a thing about their drug, really, except it's designed to treat something that they don't even know the cause of. So, very interesting commercial. And that's kind of thing, when you think about a primary source, something like that could be a good place to start. Drug ads are a great place to start if you're not particularly if you're not a political person. All right, how to get out of this? And they're all you gotta do is watch TV for 30 minutes and you'll see quite a few different ads. Also, a lot of these advertisements will take you to a website. Lyrica used to be used just for fibromyalgia. But now it treats, again, a weasel word, right? It doesn't eliminate, doesn't cure. It treats fibromyalgia, diabetic nerve pain, pain after shingles, etc., etc. It could be right for you, or it could not be right for you. And that's how those weasel words tend to work. They don't make a specific claim. Lyrica may or may not cause serious, even life-threatening allergic reactions, right? Well, there's another fella it might be right for. And just like any other drug dealer, the first one's kind of almost free. After that, you're going to start paying. But if you can't pay for it, they want to get you on it so that you will start paying for it, right? They got to make their money. Eligible patients may or may not save up to $250 a month for 12 months. And you can just kind of go through. This might be a good drug to work with because you can start with a television ad and go through how they manipulate images and make the sad, suffering person suddenly better and playing with the puppies and children and everything. And then you could come to the website. Generally at the websites, you're going to see full prescribing information. This would be a separate source other than the LUT source and the commercial. And you can go through all these different elements. And you're going to definitely see jargon taking place here. Because you're not going to be able to read a lot of this stuff. Part of this is because we're talking to doctors. But if you wanted to come in here and look for more information about your drugs, here's the clinical trial experiences. But you can see the side effects. 25% people experiencing dizziness. Another 60% somnolence. That's sleepiness, right? And you can come down here if you're using this for post-herpetic neuralgia. My guess. But if you try to read this and figure out what all these numbers mean, it's going to be very difficult. Could be a good example of drug. It doesn't mean you have to understand 100%, but you can kind of point out like, hey, if I wanted to know more about this drug, this jargon is really getting in the way. Now we're up to 1 in 3 people with the dizziness, 1 in 4 people with the sleepiness. And you just kind of keep going through there. Ataxia, is that leg swelling? I'm not sure. I'm an English teacher, not a doctor. But sometimes these side effects can be kind of prevalent. And you can also find out how often these drugs work. I'm not sure if we'll see that. I'll be able to find out real quick. It tells you how often these things work, how the effectiveness tends to slide away towards the more you take it. It's not kind of what you want to see, right? When you see all the side effects and you see it's not working for some people. They're not going to tell you that in a commercial, though, right? All right, so that could be a good source. But hopefully you're starting to see how this might work. Oops, sorry. I'm trying to get back up PowerPoint. And you can go to drugs.com if you don't get the full prescribing information on their website. But all those weasel words, all the jargon, um, using numbers to kind of communicate certain things, but maybe not to the people who are taking the pills. They make for a pretty good essay. And again, you may not end up saying that this product's evil and should be banned forever, but you're going to say, hey, they use doublespeak in their advertising and their communications, so they can get people to diagnose themselves, ask the doctor for this medication, and start to make money, right? And they want to seem to be making claims about the pills that may or may not be true. You're going to start seeing these weasel words everywhere. In higher education, we like to enhance our programs, which means nothing, right? If you go to sale and it says up to 75% off, and you go in there and nothing 75% off. Well, we said up to. We didn't say it would be 75% off, right? And you just got to start hearing these all over the place. Going crazy on my PowerPoint. The last form of doublespeak, we've got euphemism, we got jargon, then we have weasel words. Again, we're probably going to end up separating jargon and weasel words in your essay. Is inflated language, bureaucratese, gobbledygook. That's when people just pile on language, or you just use these, inflated language to the point where you give up. If you've ever bought a car or a house, you've probably signed some documents you couldn't read, right? These documents are written by lawyers for lawyers, and they just want you to sign it and do whatever they tell you to, and you do. It's amazing what all we sign. When you go to the hospital, they give you all this paperwork. If you're in pain, you can't read it. But, even if you're a fairly intelligent college student or college instructor, it might be very difficult to read through all the jargon and inflated language and bureaucraties to understand what you're actually signing. You've all done it, I'll guarantee it. Anytime you get a user agreement, my guess is you kind of start reading for about 3 seconds and you realize there's no way I'm reading all this. I just want to play my little game or do my little thing. And you're just going to, at some point, find the accept button and just agree to whatever it says. But they're talking about, your right to complain, file grievances, and all that stuff. You're signing away some very important rights. But you do it because you just want to, play your poker game or whatever you do on your phones. And you're going to see any kind of vision statement, mission statement, purpose statement from businesses and our colleges. Can start using this inflated language. Northeast states will be a premier learning center and institution. What do they mean by premier versus average versus above average versus okie dokie? It just sounds like a nice word. It doesn't mean anything. Same thing. What do you mean by learning centered? Well, okay, we're a college. Yeah, I guess. But what is that really a very specific phrase? Whose students and graduates are among the best prepared individuals to meet current and emerging needs. That word among's kind of interesting. I can't highlight it. Sorry. Hold on. Among's kind of interesting. You can just be hanging out with the best prepared individuals. You don't have to be one of them, right? You can be serving them cocktails and still be among them. So kind of an odd vision statement. We have to do this for accreditation and stuff. And they probably want that kind of language. But it's kind of vague and it's not very precise. And, what kind of vision is that? And for one of your journal entries, you're going to go to this Notice of Students and try and read through that a little bit, see what they're saying there. But when we start getting, particularly when lawyers start talking to lawyers, trying to get out of responsibility, and the language is going to start getting kind of weird. So you got those different types of doublespeak. You're going to be looking for a primary source that uses 2 or 3 of them. You may not have all of this and one perfect primary source. But you want to make sure your primary source uses at least 2 of them so you can get into the definitions and everything. One kind of want to end, it sometimes seems kind of funny, but people do this. The companies use this language against us, and they do it all the time. And this is going to be a short video by John Oliver, a little comic relief here. He's going to talk about GM recall of the cars. A while back, GM had a problem with if you had too many keys on your keychain, it would turn off the ignition switch. If you're going 80 miles an hour down the interstate and your ignition switch goes off, it locks your steering wheel and your power brakes go out. It's a bad thing, right? You don't want your car to do that. GM tried to get away from it, and they finally got caught and had to pay out some money. And Oliver's kind of going through what that might have been like. John Oliver's a comedian, one of those like late night talk show comedians, but he does a good job kind of showing us how things can go sideways.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hockley from Sandy Hook Promise. I know this is hard to hear, but it's important.
Just this Friday, we learned that GM was holding meetings at the time about dealing with their defective cars. But you'll never guess what they were talking about.
These are slides from a PowerPoint presentation given in 2008. Workers were told not to use the word defect or defective, but rather does not perform to design. And GM had judgment words that were banned, including dangerous, crippling, life-threatening, hobbling, and 65 others.
How did they even come up with that list? Was it just word association at that point? Okay, everyone, say the first word that comes to mind. Cadillac XTS. Life-threatening. Perfect. The new Chevy Sonic. Crippling and dangerous. Fantastic. Keep them going. There are no bad ideas here, just bad cars. And there were... No. There were a lot more words on that list than just those four mentioned, because the banned words include, and I'm going to show you the document to prove that they are real as I read them. They include death trap, decapitating, grenade-like, Hindenburg, Kevorkian-esque, powder keg, rolling sarcophagus, and your toast. When demons have sex, those are their safe words. We don't technically have commercial breaks on this show, but frankly, after this, I think we all might just need one just to get away from this story altogether. So if you'll excuse us, we'll be right back.
General Motors makes cars that America can be proud of. Cars you could never describe as defective or catastrophically flawed. Gruesome, potentially disfiguring rolling sarcophagi? That's not our cars. We make sleek, non-grenade-like anti-Hindenburgs that are the very opposite of Kevorkian-esque. So why not tell your family you love them and come test drive a GM car today? Driving a GM car is so smooth, it's like butter. And you're toast. General Motors. Why walk through the valley of the shadow of death when you can drive?
So that does a pretty good job of making fun of the doublespeak companies use, but he's also talking about people being killed by defective cars. So it's kind of funny and kind of harrowing at the same time. And the more you hear companies use doublespeak, the more you become aware of it. Right? You're gonna see this everywhere. All right, so we got the assignment. Hopefully we've gone through the different types of doublespeak. There's a sample doublespeak essay. He's going to choose a political topic. And also there's this doublespeak essay outline. Because everybody's essay is going to do kind of the same thing. When you start getting into your essay, one, you got to find that primary source. And again, this is you finding a company, a product, a politician, actually using the doublespeak themselves. Not somebody else telling you that car salesmen use doublespeak. Well, of course they do. Sometimes students want to say, "I want to do car salesman." I'm like, "Well, are you one? Have you worked for a car company?" You don't want to talk about just general internet people talking about general car salesmen, right? You want an actual primary source, the actual source in your hand or on the screen, I guess. And everybody's essay is going to start off kind of the same way. You're going to define doublespeak using the let source, which is provided there on D2L. Then you're going to quickly get into your category. You're doing a political speech, or you're doing, advertising, or some people have taken their company's employees manuals and gone through them a little bit. Make sure you don't get fired or anything, but things like that, right? When Eastman had an uncontrolled release a few years ago, it took them a long time to say something exploded, right? Uncontrolled release sounds a little bit better. But if your dad works for Eastman, maybe skip that topic, huh? Don't get him fired. Or your mom. I'm sorry, being sexist there. But anyway, But you're going to introduce the general category. Then you're going to get us into your primary source. Where did it come from? Who's speaking? Where did you find it? Those kinds of things. It's interesting that all these drug companies advertise on television and in magazines, more television now, obviously. But why are drug companies allowed to advertise to non-medical people about products? It's kind of what are they trying to get us to do? They're not allowed to do that in other countries, by the way. But anyway, once you find that primary source and introduce it to us, everybody thinks this is going to be pretty much like a careful examination of the primary source. We'll demonstrate the practice of doublespeak and how language can be used to manipulate us. You might gussy that up a little bit, but not too much. Because that's basically what the essay is going to be about. And then the body of the essay, you're going to take us through that primary source. Again, this depends on what kind of primary source you use. And you're not going to do all of these. This would be about a 3,000 word, 3,500 word essay if you had all these categories going here. But if you're going to do an advertisement or a political speech, you might want to look at the images. Campaign ads might be kind of an interesting thing to get into if you want to use a campaign ad. Those can be kind of hard because sometimes there's really not a lot there to work with sometimes. But like when you do the journal entries, you're going to see the politicians using images to get you to feel a certain way. They'll do something like, Joe Biden's not a child molester. And so as soon as I said the word child molester, they'll flash Trump's image on the screen, right? You see that a lot, actually, with some of these ads. But you might start off with the images. Why do drug companies use certain colors, certain images? Zoloft ad, that black and white with the egg shape, took a lot of time for them to figure that one out and what it was supposed to mean to us, right? But politicians, they're going to have the American flag pin. Trump's going to have the MAGA hat. I don't think I ever saw Trump in a baseball hat prior to his first election. Generally, billionaires don't go around in red baseball hats, right? But even something like "Make America Great Again," what does that actually mean? When was America so great that we want to go back to that place? It's kind of an interesting idea. It's an interesting question to ask people. But anyway, but you might get into all the images. Then you're going to start getting into the verbal, the language, looking at euphemism, jargon, and probably spending a paragraph on each one of these weasel words. Again, you may not have all of these, but you definitely need to have like 2 or 3 to make a good essay. You might also end up doing another category that you're going to have to define. Sometimes politicians do weird things that may not fall directly into the categories we have here from William Lutz. Remember Kellyanne Conway, advisor to Donald Trump? She would just do these deflections. So they say, why did Trump say that his inauguration was the most attended of any president? And then they show a picture of, half empty place. And then Kellyanne Conway was like, well, why is Joe Biden doing this? And the reporter would be like, what? I didn't ask about Joe Biden. I asked, about something Trump said. And she just totally deflect and move on. Great form of doublespeak by deflecting, not answering the question. But that might be a separate category from all these other ones. Just kind of depends on your primary source. That's why I want to see your primary source before you get to writing too much. Once you get to the body, everybody's essay starts to go in their own directions, right? Based on your primary source. That's what it's going to look like. Again, there's a sample essay up there. But all the materials right there under material for doublespeak essay, spring 24. Let me know if you have any questions. And this is one of those essays where we spend a lot of time working on topics so that once you finally got a good primary source, you're able to start moving on the essay. And don't be surprised if you suggest a primary source. I go like, no, don't do that. But there's all kinds of interesting things. It kind of depends what you're interested in. If you're not interested in politics, don't do a political speech, right? Probably want to go for like some kind of advertisement. If you're interested in the military and stuff, and and the political side of things, particularly the diplomatic side of things, the diplomats use this doublespeak all the time. So if you want to use one more current event, I try to stay away from current events myself so I don't get in trouble, but you're free to do that in your essay. But again, you're not offering an opinion about a particular social issue or something. Like I've had students want to do, her name went around. Hillary Clinton did a speech at Planned Parenthood, and they wanted to talk about how they don't like abortion. It's like, well, that's not the point of your essay. Is not about abortion. It is about how Hillary Clinton used language within the speech. And if you can't see the doublespeak happening in the speech, you need another topic, right? All righty. But I'm going to hush up here. That's kind of a long one, but a lot to cover there. And hopefully you're going to have this video watched before you come to class for my non-internet students, before you come to class on Wednesday, so we can start working on primary topics and primary sources. And my online students will be working on that online, obviously. But we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.